We are live. Order. And second on the agenda, we want to approve the EDA minutes from June 28th.
Is Reese going to be here today?
He is not, no,
No.
he's not.
Okay.
I've got some information from him.
Okay. Perfect. I'll move to approve the June 28th EDA meeting minutes.
Can I get a second?
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. CEDA update. Kaylin.
Good evening to the EDA board. Just to jump into it, the first thing on my kind of agenda is the Cranston Heights Park update. And I apologize for the confusion. I know there were some emails. That first paragraph, I have since putting this report out been informed that I believe the Historical Society is actually looking at doing a Veterans Memorial, and they have something really beautiful planned. So we are no longer interested in pursuing that idea for Cranston Heights. However, we have had a lot of conversations about the park, and we've explored a lot of different ideas. And I'd love to see something get done. So I would recommend maybe putting a parks committee or something together where we can have a focus group that hopefully creates a plan and is able to execute that to see something happen at Cranston Heights. So if the board is interested in looking at a parks committee or something of that nature, we can discuss that at a work meeting, or we can talk about it here tonight, but whatever makes the most sense. I just wanted to put that out there as an idea to kind of hyper focus on Cranston Heights and hopefully get something cool there. The other kind of component of my Cranston Heights Park update was I did meet with a representative of the National Fitness Campaign. They put fitness courts across the country. They installed them. They just did one up in Wilmer. It's a relatively costly investment of about $185,000 for the complete fitness court, but it provides kind of a cool, different way for people to work out, and it would be something unique for our parks that we haven't had before. Blue Cross Blue Shield of Minnesota is subsidizing 10 parks by $50,000 next year. So if this is something that we'd be interested in exploring for Cranston Heights, or maybe in addition to Rosie, we could look at maybe, trying to find alternative grant funds to kind of fund the remainder of that, and then try to get that $50,000 from Blue Cross Blue Shield. So again, something else that would be unique and kind of different for the park, but another idea that, again, we could talk about as a smaller parks committee if we wanted to put something like that together. Were we interested in discussing tonight, or would we want to maybe revisit this at a later time?
For the people?
For the committee or the Cranston Heights?
Yeah, I think it might be a good idea if everybody has an opportunity, kind of think about it and see if that's a committee that you're willing to kind of jump on. And then maybe at our next work meeting, then we can discuss that, and maybe you could join us at that meeting.
Absolutely.
Because that would be a really good time to kind of knock on some of these. And just a touch, I do have a family who has monies that they want to donate to Cranston Heights Park. And so I've been in touch with them, and they're more than happy to kind of come to, and they're looking at playground equipment or whatever the city wants to put in there. So there's
awesome.
Money there too. So.
And that's very exciting. And I would hope that if we did put a committee together, it could maybe be, one person from council, if somebody was interested, but also maybe some members of the public. I know Cranston Heights is kind of, the city's longest standing park, and it has, holds a lot of memories for people in the community. So we may be able to get some community engagement, and have myself or, one of you potentially, and then some interested community folks. So. Awesome. So we can, if you guys want to think about that, and we can put it on the next work meeting agenda. The second item on my agenda is public works grants and loan opportunities. Jason and I have been discussing a couple of different opportunities that have become available through USDA Rural Development. One of them is called Community Facilities Direct Loan and Grant Program, and the other is a Water and Waste Disposal Loan and Grant Program. I reached out to Reese. I know ISG has a grants team where they are familiar with these types of grants and have had success receiving grants for communities. I am hopping on a call tomorrow with our regional representative from USDA. Her name is Lori Bellata. So she's just going to answer some of my questions on the two different programs. There's not a whole lot of clarity just on USDA's site on what constitutes a city for getting a loan versus a grant. So I'd like to learn a little bit more about the distinction between the two programs and how we may be able to access grant dollars. For the facilities kind of loan and grant program, I know Jason and I were talking about potentially trying to get some money for new public works equipment. And then for the water and waste disposal, looking at maybe working in some of our water system. So we'll be meeting with ISG and I'll be talking to USDA as well. For that grant writing cost to hire ISG to do the grant writing, we're still hoping to use the LMC Grant Navigator program. So they would give us $5,000 to then pay ISG to help write that grant. So hopefully it wouldn't cost us anything to apply and we could get some funding through USDA. So more information to come on that. And I don't have all the technical answers if you have questions on the programs Jason is looking at, but hopefully we'll be able to put something together as a team and apply for some bigger dollars for public works. Awesome. And then the third update I have is for the facade improvement program. We are now officially accepting applications. None have been received at this time. I did drop off guidelines and applications at a business today, and someone else reached out to me via email, and I shared that with them and just let them know that they could print it out. They could call me if they have questions. They can pick something up in City Hall. So we've had some interest in the community, which is really exciting, but at this time, we haven't had any new applications come in. We still have 2 outstanding facade improvement applications from last year, and both of those are reaching their 12-month mark in the next couple of months. So I'll be following up with those applicants so hopefully they can get their projects completed and we can pay those out as well. And then going forward, we'll be utilizing the $6,000 annual cap for the program. So exciting stuff. The last thing I have to talk about is the tax increment financing or TIF guidelines and applications. I believe you saw these maybe for the first time at our last meeting. Since then, I had Kennedy and Graven or Bob review the TIF guidelines we put together. Bob didn't have a whole lot of comments on them. He thought they looked good in terms of TIF guidelines. The one section I did leave highlighted that we're kind of waiting for final review on is the section that addresses a TIF application fee. Typically, cities require an application fee when somebody applies for TIF assistance. As it stands right now, the city of Goodhue doesn't have anything in place. So from my understanding, or I guess my assumption, is the city has paid those costs out of pocket for all TIF applications that have come in the past. Jill reached out, which I thank you, Jill, to Northland Securities to just kind of get their costs for typically setting up a TIF district. And those dollars are between $7,000 and $15,000 just to set up a TIF district. That does not include the legal fees from Kennedy and Graven for putting together a contract for development or things like that. In your packets, I did look at, I believe, 11 different communities and kind of wrote down what they do for their TIF application fee. There are a lot of different things people do. Some of them require a non-refundable kind of application fee deposit. Some of them will just bill all of their expenses to the developer. Some require a application fee and then they will refund any, unused monies back to the developer, kind of so they're only paying what they get. My initial recommendation was to instate a $10,000 application fee, and if we go over those costs, we can bill those back to the developer. So if they go over $10,000, they still have to pay their difference. We'd have to bill that at a later date. I believe if they don't pay those, we can assess them on their property taxes. But I also don't necessarily want TIF to be inaccessible to people. So if we think that's too high, a lot of times the fee from the TIF consultant or Northland wouldn't actually be due unless the TIF is approved by council. So we could also explore, a lower application fee of maybe $1,000, $2,000, $3,000, and then they have to pay an additional $10,000 if their TIF is approved by the city. So we could do something like that to kind of lower the barrier to apply for a TIF, but then if it gets approved and the city is going to incur those expenses, we could still require them to pay additional monies. So Those are kind of my recommendations. And then aside from the application fee, going forward by state statute, the city is allowed to retain 10% of the TIF for administrative costs. Jill let me know, she also followed up with Northland, that we pay about $1,000 a year to them to manage our TIF districts. So we could retain up to 10% of their TIF costs, or what they'd be getting back for the city. So we could only retain maybe $1,000 to just to cover the cost of Northland, or if there's staff time and things we want to subsidize that cost as well, we can. So I'd recommend retaining things throughout the life of the TIF to help pay the ongoing costs, but then again, instating the application fee on the front end to help cover the initial expenses for a TIF district. I know Jill put together a really great fee schedule, so I think now's the time to discuss it, maybe get a TIF application fee on that schedule. So that would be kind of my recommendation. I know this is also a lot of information, and cities do things a lot of different ways. So again, if we wanted to put this on a work meeting or at the August special meeting, just discuss in more depth, we can as well.
So that fee meeting is August 7th, correct? So we can look at.
We got it August 7th. Perfect.
So Kaylin, do we have to get the fee set first before we can move forward with our current individual who's looking at TIP funding?
Yes. So,
and then approve that at a meeting?
So for my understanding, with the current FabTech TIF that's been discussed, nothing formal has been submitted to the city in terms of them wanting to move forward with the TIF. Therefore, we could wait and kind of, do the TIF as we've done in the past for them, or we could approve the guidelines and then ask them to abide by the new standards of the city. Again, if you decide to go back about it the normal way, the city will be inherently covering the cost of the TIF, which again will be a minimum of at least $7,000 just from the consultant, not including the legal fees associated with that. So my recommendation would be to, hopefully move the guidelines forward, since nothing formal has been submitted to the city yet for the FabTech TIF. And especially since they want a new TIF district, I think that's fair, but that's also the board's decision.
So if we discuss this at the August 7th meeting, because it's a fee meeting, which
Yes.
we could, then we would have to wait until our end of the August to pass and make a resolution that we're gonna accept this.
Yes, and for the guidelines, again, it's been reviewed by the legal team, and they say everything's good to go, except the application fee component of it. So that will be the only change, and then yes, we can get the resolution to approve the guidelines.
Does anybody else have any questions for Kaylin on that?
I'm glad to have this.
I was reading through it too. I learned quite a little just
Yes,
through that.
yeah. So this is good.
Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, maybe there's been one floating around somewhere, but I don't know.
Yeah, and I think too with these, it also sets kind of a formal process in place for what approving a TIF looks like. So they do have to meet with city staff and people to make sure it's a project that we're interested in pursuing and have those initial conversations. So it we have the warning, and also will typically take I would say between 60 and 90 days for a TIF to get approved. With TIF, the city is the ultimate authority on it. So you're taking the county and the school district's taxes, and they don't have a say on it, but you do have to give them 30-day notice to make comments. So there are certain statutory requirements you have to go through in terms of timing, which is why it may take probably at least 60 days to go through council for approval. Awesome. And then the last thing I just wanted to mention that's actually not in my agenda, but I talked to the mayor about this the other day, and the city of Goodhue is part of the Southeastern Minnesota League of Municipalities group. It's just a group of municipalities in the region. They get together quarterly. They just talk about things that are going on. There's typically a formal presentation 2 quarters ago, I guess, they talked about housing initiatives in rural communities. And then 1 month ago, they talked about transportation. So they have a lot of different topics they cover. I just want to put that out there. I can share the information. I've gone to a couple. I actually was a representative of Goodhue last time. But if anyone is interested in attending those meetings, the city is a member. on their fun, and it's a good networking opportunity just to hear what other communities are doing. So if anyone's interested, I can share the information when we get it for the next meeting, but just want to throw that out there.
Maybe we could send it to Jill and then she could send it out.
Absolutely,
To
yes.
us,
So once I
and-
have it all sent your way.
Yeah, if anybody wants to go, we'll just have to be careful we don't have a quorum.
Yeah,
Sure.
yeah. Don't everybody jump on it at once.
Yeah, right.
That's
right.
You're safe.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Awesome. Great. Well, that's all I have then.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yep. I have an update from Reese on the lots, and he did receive the information from Wingate on the lots, and so he looked it all over. He has asked Jason for some additional information. He couldn't tell by the plans that they gave him how those houses were gonna work on those lots. He needed some additional information. So Jason did speak with Mr. Gadiant today, and he forwarded that on, what he needed from him. Mr. Gadiant said that he would forward that on to Travis, and that they would get those to Reese. And as soon as Reese gets all that, and he goes through it, then he'll have an update on that, okay? And so, all right. Okay, so could I get a motion to adjourn the EDA meeting?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Okay. It is July 26, 2023 at 6:15. We'll call the regular city council meeting to order. Stand for the pledge of allegiance.
Whoops. I might have to go here.
I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay.
Watch
Number 3, approve or amend the agenda. The first amendment that I would like to make is that we strike Reese from the agenda. So we can strike him. And then the second one would be D on joint powers agreement, North Zumbro Sanitary Sewer Regional Facility. We're actually doing that in C. So we'll do that all encompassing. So we can strike D as well. And that. And strike Reese. And then on the bottom, I would like to, we will add Mitch Lindholm, and under public comment, just add C. And Mr. Bose, I have a question for you. The police chief has asked if we could go into a closed meeting tonight to discuss hiring and personnel, but that would not, we have to post that for 3 days, correct?
Yeah, so Mayor, Council, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yep.
Great. Love the new chambers arrangement. That's great. Sorry I'm not there in person. Yeah, so Mayor, to the extent you're going to talk about hiring issues, no, that's not there isn't a basis to close a meeting in relation to hiring issues. And if we're going to talk about performance issues, then we have to give the employee notice and a right to keep the meeting open. So I guess I don't know the details on that, but I don't think we have a basis to close the meeting, having given notice to the employee and given them a right to keep the meeting open. So, but maybe I don't know the facts, but that's the law, is that you'd have to give the employee who's going to be reviewed notice and the right to keep the meeting open.
So is this a hiring
It's a hiring, retention,
Oh, okay.
business going on within the PD. Possibly hiring, we have 0 applicants.
Okay.
So, and the possible future of, so I wanted to discuss all of that, and a lot of other PDs reaching out, trying to hire us right now.
Okay. So, again, that wouldn't necessarily be a closed meeting, correct? Could you hear Josh?
I totally could, yeah, thanks, chief. To say maybe what's obvious, maybe what's not obvious, but, hiring police officers, is proving difficult these days around the state, probably country. That's an issue, for a lot of communities. But unfortunately, or fortunately, there's not a basis to close the meeting to talk about that. If, the city needs to hire more police officers and, needs to change its budget expectations to do that, or, whatever the chief would like to talk about, I'm not aware of a reason to close the meeting to do that.
Okay. So maybe we can get that on the work agenda meeting?
If you wanna put it off 2 weeks.
Okay. Well, I don't know the basis, so
Yeah.
you gotta help me so I can make a
Tell us.
decision.
So I'm gonna chime in for a minute here.
We're still working on amending, hold on. Should we close to amend the meeting and then go into regular council, or can we do this, Bob?
Yeah, no, Mayor, it's a great point. So I think you are at that point on the agenda where you are approving the agenda. The chief has a request to
Okay.
consider a change to the agenda. I would ask him to come to the podium, and if he wants to make a case for changing the agenda, then let's talk about it. And before you take a vote, he can tell you why you might want to change your agenda. And so I think that's the way to proceed.
We'll wait till the next meeting.
Okay.
Okay. Did you hear that? He's up.
No?
I did, that sounds great. Yep.
No, actually,
No, he doesn't need to, we can't,
Okay.
cannot wait.
Okay.
it can't wait.
No.
It actually can't wait, and that's what I wanted to talk to you guys about.
Okay,
So,
But
Well-
you're not going, just,
Yeah.
let me just have a second. Don't explain everything,
Yeah.
right now you're just asking to
Be on the
put on the
agenda to talk.
agenda.
I would like to please be on the agenda,
Okay.
so I can speak about the hiring of the police department, retention of officers, future direction of the police department.
Okay. Perfect. So,
So Mayor,
Yeah.
if I can, I'm sorry to interrupt, but, so there's as I understand it, there's a motion and a second to approve the agenda. We now have a request to amend the agenda, so maybe the motion, I didn't hear who made the motion to approve the agenda and who seconded it, but it sounds like the request is to amend the agenda to add a new item of business, a new item of new business. Maybe Chief, you want to do this under police report, or maybe you want to add a new agenda item, I don't know how you want to do it, but
We'll do it under police report.
basically, I think Chief's asking to speak to an issue about the force level, and so maybe council could just amend the motion to approve the agenda to allow the chief to speak to that issue.
so could we amend on the floor is to amend the agenda to allow the police chief to address the issues at hand. So could I get a motion to approve that? So he'll speak under the police report.
Under the police report.
Right.
So how is that amending it then?
It was already on here.
It's already
Well,
on.
he wants to talk about hiring.
Oh,
As a police report that's different.
Let's just give us an update on what's going on, so this is just, okay, yeah.
Okay.
Well, it's kind of what's going on.
Yep,
Yeah.
right.
I'll motion to
Okay.
change G to police report and G talk.
Okay. Can I get a second?
So moved.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Okay. All right, so the agenda has been amended at this point. So do we have to take a second vote to amend the entire agenda?
Yeah, Mayor, I mean, obviously Goodhue has not operated under the strictest interpretation of Robert's rules over the years. I think what you just did is
It's
you
fine.
approved the agenda with, new business, including
Okay.
under police report, the chief reporting on the needs for the force to change force levels or add, so I think you just included in G, 6G, the chief's ability to talk about that issue. So I think you're good to go. I think you
Good.
approved your agenda, you can move forward.
Okay. All right, so we moved the agenda, so could I get, to approve the meeting minutes from June 28th and July 12th? Council meeting and work meeting.
I'll move to approve the minutes on the 28th and the 12th.
All those in favor?
I'll second.
Oh. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, opposed? Motion carried. Anything under old business? Oh, old business. Billboard. Paperwork has all been done. It has now been signed. Jill will move that on to Reagan Outdoor Advertising. So Mr. Bose has looked at it. Reese has got the final, and so that will go probably tomorrow. Okay? That is the only old business that I have. Unless anybody else has any old business. No? Okay, new business. Under B, the resolution 9.23 approving support for the North Zumbro Sanitary District. This is what we brought before at our work meeting. It's allowing the council to approve it and then have the ability to go ahead and continue to ask for funding through the state. This one has to be a roll call vote. All right. So I need a motion to approve the support for the North Zumbro Sanitary Sewer District Regional Wastewater Treatment Facility bonding bill request. That's the motion on the table.
Okay, I move.
Okay, did I get a second?
I'll second.
Okay, and so I will roll call. Chris? Aye. Joe, or Patrice?
Aye.
Aye. Joe?
Yes.
Okay. Jason?
Aye.
And myself, the mayor, aye. Motion carried. Okay, next on the agenda is a resolution approving a joint powers agreement for the North Zumbro Sanitary District. This is twofold. With the joint powers, remember we talked at our work meeting that we must appoint somebody, and then we have to appoint a secondary as well. Right. So we need to make a motion to, should we make the, do the appointment first and then approve it with a roll call vote?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, so Mayor and Council, Mayor, shut me off when I've gone too far here. But, yeah, so this resolution that's in front of you would do two things. It would approve the joint powers agreement. It would approve the contract basically between the four cities that are participating in the regional wastewater treatment facility. Having a contract, having an agreement, having a deal between the four cities is a contingency, is a requirement of the law that gave you $10 million to plan for and acquire property for and do the other things to get ready for having that regional wastewater treatment facility. So having an agreement among the four cities is a requirement of the legislation that gives you that money. So this resolution would approve that agreement. I was happy to be selected to help the four cities come up with that joint powers agreement, and it's a very common, it's a very standard form agreement between the four cities. There's a little bit of back and forth between the city administrators and mayor here other representatives. Sorry, my dog is going crazy, which happens every meeting I'm on Zoom. Sorry about that. So it's a very standard agreement to create this joint powers entity. And so that's approved. And then the other thing there that you're talking about is that to have this joint powers entity, we have to have some leadership. We have to have some representatives from each of the participating cities. And this resolution would have you appoint your lead representative and an alternate. So I think the way to do this would be for the council to move approval of the resolution, identifying in that motion who you want to be your representative and your alternative. So in other words, or alternate. So in other words, Mayor, maybe you want to move approval of the resolution. It would be move approval with so-and-so as the representative and so-and-so as the alternative representative, and then second and then vote on it. And then we don't need to separately vote on the agreement. So let me know if there are questions. That was a lot of lawyer speak, so but that's essentially what I would recommend that you do.
Okay. But as mayor, can I recommend myself, or should I have the deputy mayor do that?
Yeah, mayor council, I mean, it's, mayor, you certainly can nominate yourself to be the representative and someone else to be the alternate, that's fine.
Okay. Per our conversation at our work meeting, then I would recommend that I would represent and be appointed as the City of Goodhue, the director of the executive committee for the North Sunboro Sanitary Joint Powers Agreement, and Public Works Director Jason Mandicole would be our alternate. That would be the motion on the table.
So move, I'll motion.
I'll second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Whoop, we need a roll call.
Oops, sorry.
Flip it over. Okay, so, Chris?
Yes.
Okay, Patrice?
Yes.
Joe?
Yes.
Jason?
Yes.
Terry? Yes. Okay. Motion carried. All right. Next on the agenda. All of these documents are filed as well with the state. So we have to keep very strict records with all of these things, so thank you. Hey, next, where is my, what did I do on the agenda? It is. Okay, ordinance 168 private pools. So if you go through and look at that, keep in mind that the former ordinance number 168, that was adopted on,
May 2022, wasn't it?
right, I think when I was looking at, 5/11/22 in previous council. So the new ordinance is looking not to amend, but to repeal and replace. Okay, because we struck some of the language. Is that correct? Mr. Bowles?
Yeah, so
We're
Mayor and Council,
repealing.
so, you adopted a year or two or whenever, you just said, Mayor, I'm not sure how long ago that was, but not too long ago.
Mhm.
You adopted an ordinance about pools, you're looking to make some changes to it. You're looking to, in other words, amend, change your requirements for pools. There are a couple ways to do that. This is one way. One way is just to repeal the prior ordinance, ordinance 168, and adopt a new ordinance that sets the rules for today. The changes are relatively minor, I think. Maybe somebody can characterize the changes, but they're not a ton of changes. But anyway, you would just repeal 168 and adopt a new ordinance that makes a few changes, and that would be the new set of rules, the new law for pools in Goodhue. So that's what you're proposing to do.
Is there a reason that they go into effect January 1st? Is it to give people time of 24?
Yeah, so that's what we discussed in
Yeah.
our
Yeah.
meeting, was that we weren't gonna enforce it like right now,
Mhm.
the new rules, that we were gonna give them time to fix the
Catch up.
problem,
Okay.
or if there's a problem.
Great. And so then, starting next spring, then all of the new rules would be in effect.
Okay.
But in the meantime, would they still be governed by the former?
No,
No?
no, I didn't appreciate that, so. Yeah, no, so,
Yeah, then,
so
then we have a gap.
I don't wanna drag us back through how we got here. So we've got ordinance 168 in place. It sets rules for pools. We wanna make some tweaks. I would call them relatively minor changes to our rules for pools. That's fine. We can't, though, repeal ordinance 168 entirely and say that the new ordinance goes into effect the first of the year, because that means that we have no rules for pools between now and the first of the year,
Mhm.
right? I
Yep.
mean, we would repeal right now an ordinance and then say a new ordinance goes into effect at the beginning of the year. I don't think that's what the council needs to do, maybe I'm wrong, but I thought what we meant to do was just make a couple of changes to the current rules and have those new changes go into effect
Mhm.
as of January 1, 2024. So I didn't appreciate that, you know, I drafted a different ordinance, this is not what I drafted, so I didn't see that the effective date, well, it's actually not even the effective date provision. The end of the ordinance that's in the packet says adopted by the council on today, and then into effect January 1, 2024, so the whole ordinance would go into effect January 1 of 2024. So I guess it's up to you. Do you want to have no pool rules between now and January 1 of 2024, or do you want to have the current rules in effect through the end of the year and then have new rules in effect at the beginning of the year? I don't know what you intend to do.
The later is what was talked about at our work meeting.
Right.
So
Well,
if we have to change something on the one that was for 2024, we can go back to the drawing board, right? Then.
Right.
adjust for-
Yep.
I think we have to
Yeah.
keep the rules for the existing
The original.
and then the tweaks will go into effect January 1st. Otherwise, we have nothing protecting anything.
Right.
Right. Yeah, so Mayor and Council, I don't want to hold this up. Goodness knows we want to move along with this. I would just say, the council can approve this ordinance that's in front of you tonight. Just give the direction in making the motion that the language in this ordinance be changed to say that in the very last sentence, which now says it's not even a complete sentence, it just says into effect January 1, 2024. I think we'll change that to say the changes made by this ordinance go into effect as of January 1, 2024, and that will, allow us not to enforce any new changes here until next year.
Okay.
So there'll be some wording changes, but you can go ahead and approve this with that. Just make that amendment as part of enacting or adopting this ordinance right now.
Okay. Okay. So, could
Am I making sense? I mean, I think you want to adopt a new ordinance with a couple of changes in it. You just want the changes to go into effect next year, right?
Correct.
Yeah, so, okay, great.
Hey, changes. Could we get a motion to accept the ordinance?
I'll make the motion to accept the ordinance as read.
Not ready? Oh. Sorry.
I don't know.
Okay. And then with the exception that there will be minor language changes, correct?
As of the first of the year.
Right.
Exactly right, yep.
Okay. So there's a motion on the floor. We have a first. And Patrice seconds. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Okay.
I think I gotta go to my ambulance board.
Yep, you do. Public Works report, Jason has a report in here that he's asked you to just all, read over. Okay. And, okay. Police report, chief,
Yes, ma'am.
you're up.
Okay, something I found out today, before I get into the other stuff, coming up this upcoming year, this fall, cities are gonna be, I think, or either this fall or the beginning of next year, cities are gonna be, they just had a $300 million fund go out to the state of Minnesota. So, Goodhue will be getting, and I printed it off, it should be $55,180+ for public safety, and so that go towards firefighters, anything for that, or police. I didn't do as much. It just came across right before I came in here, so. But that's my understanding of it. I printed off all the cities and kind of what they have for. In case you guys wanted that later.
Right.
And so.
That would go for like ambulance service as well then, or is that separate?
I'm not 100% sure. So it public safety, so I would assume so, but I'm not 100% sure. So with that being said, the reason for this whole horse and pony show, sorry about that. Right now, we're kind of at we have a pendulum here swinging. We're going. Right now, the state is in a crisis for hiring. We all know this. We've talked about it multiple times after the whole thing in the last couple of years. They defund the police. Now, places can't even retain anybody. That's the only thing there is to it. They can't retain them. They can't hire them. They're not out there. I've talked to all the surrounding communities around us. They're having a hard time getting any applicants at all. They're actually relying on surrounding PDs and officers already out there and trying to get them. Okay? So right now with our current trying to hire at $22 an hour, you're never going to see another person again walk through those doors. That's it. Unless you guys do a dramatic change, everybody sits down and comes up with it or find the direction, but it's not going to happen. Every PD out there, the smallest of, have dramatically upped the bar. I'm talking, and we don't even have a pay scale yet out here. I mean, there's no pay scale. There's no real incentive for coming out here. You come to these other places, and they got sign-on bonuses, which don't get me started on that one. But there's zero incentive to come out here to a small town. Low pay, being on call, affecting your free time and everything else. Like I said, this has been 3 weeks now. We got 0 applicants, and I have 0 prospects. I've called every PD around to get for the youngest guys out there getting into the game. There's nobody getting into the game. And the ones that are scrapped up immediately and going to the cities. They're hiring them right off the bat. They're hiring them out of college. Like, they're not even graduated yet, and they're already getting offers. How is anybody going to compete with any of this? So we're running into issues like that. So unless we can, if we want to keep the PD, okay, and as I've always said, I'm here for you guys. If you want to keep the PD, and this is something where we want to continue going with, something that needs to change dramatically and drastically, and it's got to happen now. It can't happen 6 months from now, a year. So not to put the pressure on, I've been trying my hardest to getting out there and doing what we can. And a lot of harsh realities are popping up unless we can actually do things. Okay? I can tell you right now that in a matter of a month or two, there's a good chance that I'm going to be the only guy out here for the PD. Okay? We have one part-timer that's willing to pick up time, but he makes more than I make just working in the jail. He comes out here out of just trying to help me. Same with the rest of my part-timers. They're out here just to help me. It's a personal favor that they do for me. So there's a good chance that I'm going to be the only guy out here in a couple of months. There's job offers left and right that are and when I say there's job offers left and right, in the last 2 days, I have gotten 3 phone calls and 3 offers for jobs, myself. Okay? And I'm trying like crazy to hold on for out here. But the harsh reality, if we can't hire, what can we do? There is other options, and I'm willing to stick it out as long as I can to help you guys. But I mean, there's always a chance that you guys could maybe contract with the county. I don't know if you guys want to reach out and talk to them, see where they're gonna go. Last time I talked to them and I was saying that you guys wanted anywhere, we were going over the amount of coverage. It was something similar to already what our budget is. So it'd just be a neutral push, but you're just not gonna have the guys. Now I can't speak for the county. I'm a boy in blue, and I'm very partial to being a boy in blue. So we're out there in the schools, going to the classes, playing kickball, meeting with all the kids, meeting with people, going to their... There's an element to small town policing that is, if it's not held onto and held onto tightly, it's going to go the way of the dodo. And the one thing I do want to mention, though, is that having crunching numbers left and right, if you guys want to go with the county, I support you 110%. Okay? That's if you guys really want to go. If you guys want to hold on to the PD and you want to change something, we're going to have to get our heads together. We're going to figure this out. If you get rid of the PD, like I said, I'm crunching numbers, there's no getting it back. And this isn't saying forever is a long time, but you're never getting it back. You will never be able to afford it again. The cost of starting a PD from the ground up, it will be unobtainable for this little city. So if you make a decision, you guys are going to have to figure out, you're going to have to know for certain this is what you want. You guys, there's no going left or right or stepping back on this. You either go forward or you don't. And then we just hunker down and figure out what we need. Okay? So I'm trying to put that out there. Like I said, I've had 3 job offers, 2 days, and I'm not going to lie, it's very enticing. Okay? And I am talking to them right now. Not that I'm leaving you guys, because I told you that I'm in it, and I've been trying to, but the harsh reality is I don't want to be the guy working 80 hours a week, just running this PD, being on call 24 hours a day, which I already am. It leaves no time for my own family. So either we do something, we fill it up, or we don't. And yeah, so I'm sorry for the whole back and forth.
Even if we make some changes, if there's no apps, if there's nobody putting applications in, how do we?
Well, at
change?
$22 an hour, you're never
Oh.
going to see an app again.
Okay.
Like that's the way of the dodo. The smallest of PDs are hiring $30+ an hour.
Yep.
I finally just got raised where I'm just, you know where I'm at.
Yep.
It's a little bit less than me, or a little, yeah. So and
Right.
you guys, if you guys changed your game, up the game, we work for any sort of incentives, you might actually be able to bring people in. We might actually be able to get the PD back to going again. Problem is, when you're going to these places, Red Wing, Lake City, they're offering the same wages that I make for the new hires. And I'm getting, since I get longevity and I'm not even starting at that, I'm starting way higher than that if I go to any of these places. What do we have for retention? And I know that we talked about it a year ago when you guys got on, that was great. And you guys have had your plates full, I get that. I didn't even foresee us going into this pickle. But we are in this pickle, and we got to deal with the harsh reality of it. Yeah, like I said, I do apologize for the whole back and forth. I can actually hear my own heartbeat in my head right now. So I'm pretty, I don't want to be up here.
So
That's why I wanted to go on the closed meeting. I didn't know if it would be better to break it to you guys this way and then talk about it later on, but
I think what we need to do is schedule a special meeting
Yeah.
just for this.
Yeah.
I mean, would council agree that we can
Well,
really sit down and then we can sit down around the table and really hammer some things out and figure out where we need to go from here.
Okay.
So,
And that meeting has to happen
It's
Soon.
very.
ASAP.
right,
I'm telling you, they literally want me into that other PD in 2 weeks, and I was telling them I don't want to leave this place without things being straightened out and in the right direction. Yeah.
so we still have to post the meeting. So
Mhm.
when would be the soonest that we could have a meeting, Jill?
For business days, as
Right.
in Monday through Friday, Monday.
That's as soon as we can have a meeting. Okay.
And I can tell you that, I've known Josh a long time. I know the law enforcement within our community, and a police officer starting out is anywhere between $36 to $41 an hour. And it used to be the community that I work in that was the lowest paid in the county. Now the lowest paid is us. So, I agree with
Yeah.
Josh, and this needs to happen before we lose.
Can we do this? Is everybody available on Monday night?
We'll have to.
Yeah. I mean,
I'm willing to work through whatever you guys
Monday?
and help. Yeah.
Monday, July 31st, 6 p.m.
6 p.m.
okay,
All right.
all right. And Jill, we'll go ahead and get that posted in 6 o'clock.
Thank you for your time.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, special meeting.
Hey Josh, is Tony working Monday?
No, but I can have them work Monday.
Do we want Tony here as well?
I think we should have him here.
I
I
think
think
that would
so.
be a
I
really
think
good
that'd be a good
idea.
idea. He should be here.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
No, 7 no.
Thanks, Josh.
Thank you. Okay. Amanda is not here. Okay, Jenny, you're up, finally.
I don't think I'd be up here, but
Uh,
I just wanted to hopefully change some minds on the pool ordinance. But and I'm not familiar with city council meetings, is that a done deal at this point?
What are you referring to changing minds?
I'm not sure what is in the tweaking of the new one, but I have an issue with fencing my entire yard versus fencing the pool, which the pool is the problem. I think it's more important to, sorry, I'm really nervous too.
That's okay.
That's okay. I would.
I think the safety of the pool is what we're looking at. And personally, I've had a pool for many years. Always had a safety ladder. I have, the utmost responsibility with it. It's not a toy. I've always thought of pool safety, and I have a friend of mine that had his grandson die in a neighbor's pool. So it's something that always crosses my mind, and I'm raising my 4-year-old granddaughter. So to me, fencing in my entire yard does me no good at all. It'll keep out the neighbor kids, but it doesn't protect my kids from the safety of the pool. So, for me, it's, having that safety ladder, or what I'm doing with this pool is putting on a deck with, very high up latched gate. That, to me, that will keep my kids safer and everybody else's kids safer than a fence around my yard. Because right now my pool stands taller than the required fence height.
Okay.
So it really doesn't make a lot of sense to put a fence when my pool's already taller than that.
Bob, can you address that?
don't
You know,
think we
So I'm not
changed
sure, you know, just
Yeah.
if there's any exceptions, people grandfathered in, or,
so,
Because it says
Yeah, so,
yards,
Mayor
doesn't
Council,
it?
no,
Says
there's no grandfathering of something like this, there's no exceptions. Obviously, the resident here is making an argument that you should create an exception or create an exemption, and that's a policy decision for council. But as the ordinance is written, no, there's no exception, there's no exemption, there's no grandfathering, there's no, this pool as described would have to meet the code requirements. So I think the resident is asking you to change your law further, and obviously you can do that if you're persuaded that you should. I don't know if you should or shouldn't, it's not a legal question, so you could do that, but no, there's no exemption, there's no exception.
thank you.
Okay, so completely enclosed, so even if it's in the original ordinance, we didn't even change nothing.
yeah, we didn't change
No.
anything.
That was
It
the
didn't
original
change
ordinance, it's
anything.
all exactly the same here.
Which was never enforced, and,
Right,
Right.
so,
Yeah, so everything that we're changing doesn't pertain to that's all exactly, I
The
just read
yards.
through it and marked it, it's all the same.
what I think what we need to keep in mind is, you know, this ordinance was adopted in 2022. And certainly Jason had just come on at that time. So just trying to catch up with all the ordinances.
Oh.
So no, there wasn't until he could read through and get all of the ordinance kind of under his belt and with the change of the council.
and was
as
there,
well.
ordinance before that?
I don't think so.
Because I've
I-
had,
It's irrelevant, it doesn't matter if there's an ordinance before it, it's
Oh.
legally irrelevant. The ordinance that we're talking about was adopted whenever it was. The requirement here of having a fence isn't a grandfathering thing. It's not a thing you can be grandfathered for. So whenever the ordinance was adopted, I guess I don't know exactly the date. If you have a pool that's subject to the ordinance, you have to have a fence. Again, the council can be persuaded by the resident's argument that an above-ground pool of the kind that she has shouldn't be required to have a fence, and that's obviously up to the council, but there's no grandfathering thing here. That's not an issue.
I guess I don't even know you have, I don't pay attention, but,
I have an above ground,
and it's on a deck, you said?
I have a deck attached to it,
Deck attached to it,
correct?
So
Which
it's,
is,
it's not like the ones that you pick up at Walmart and
no, it's a
has the
permanent,
PVC pipe. This is more of a permanent look, but still,
which these you're able to put the deck around.
yes.
Yeah.
And it,
And so, yes, I would have a deck, and I would put a deck entirely around. I mean, as of this point, my plan is to go, almost halfway. But if it avoids, having to put a fence around my entire yard, I would gladly put a deck with rails, I'll put 2 gates on it.
Yeah, well, right, I mean, as long as there was a fence all the way around the pool, that would be,
Right.
yeah. I
Because
guess.
like I said, I mean, I would still have to keep my kids safe, I would still, and I would do that anyways. I mean, it needs to be locked. It needs to be safe.
So you're saying that having the whole yard enclosed by a fence, and why wouldn't that work?
It would keep out the neighbors,
Yeah,
and then I wouldn't have to have any sort of safety thing on my pool. But what if the neighbors got over? I have lots of little kids, what if the gate was left open? There still needs to be safety at the pool itself.
right.
So whether that be a safety ladder or a safety gate, that is on stairs for a deck or a landing, something like that, it would still, to me, putting a fence around is not enough. because the pool is the issue, not my yard. I
Right.
still need safety at my pool.
And I think regardless whether it's the yard or the pool, regardless of what the fence is around, like you said, if you just had a chain link fence going around your yard 4 feet high, whatever, if that's all you have, and you said that somebody left the gate open, well, it would still be in a violation because the gate isn't self-latching.
Yes.
Okay, so what I'm seeing here is that, what I'm reading is that as long as there is a fence, whether it's a fence around the whole entire yard or a fence around the pool.
Okay.
So being that, and I don't know, we'd have to talk about it too, is if you put a deck all the way around your pool that is of, what does it say here?
4 feet.
Well, it says, all outdoor pools and spas hereafter constructed shall be completely enclosed by a fence or wall of non-climbing type. So your pool in itself is not a climbing, you can't climb it. You can, the way it sits right now, but if you were to add a deck all the way around it with a 4-foot railing that's like on your deck and you attached to your house, then it's even higher, they can't climb it. Does that make, you understand what I'm saying?
Mhm.
So that in itself is like
To me, that's what I
a fence,
think, yeah.
as long as
Got it
it's
all the way around.
self-contained. And then you would be containing your pool. Your pool is the problem, not your yard.
Right.
So you see what I'm saying? So if you had a full fenced-in yard, either way, it has to be 4 feet self-latching gate. But if the pool itself had a deck and a railing around it that was at least 4 feet tall with everything in here, I think that's,
That would be legit to me, I guess, that's how
I
I
mean,
feel.
it's secure.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, I don't know what kind of laws are in Minnesota, but in the South, your yard has to be enclosed and your pool has to be enclosed. And that is the insurance requirements. So, and we haven't even gotten into that. Homeowners insurance, what do they require? I don't know. I know mine does.
Yeah.
So, I think, you know, your pool is what, 4.5, 5 feet tall?
It's 40, well, 50, 54.
So 54, and then you add another 4 foot on top of that, you're looking at 90, almost 100 inches.
Right.
No toddler's gonna be able to
No.
climb that. And that's what it specifically says in here, is that impenetrable by toddlers, afford no external handholds, and a minimum of 4 feet in height. So, it's just looking at that, I mean, I'm just myself, but if they had,
Well, yeah. it
And
makes
this
sense
is,
to
the-
me.
this must be the new one.
yes, this is the
Okay.
new one.
Okay.
That's the new one, but I mean, like this one, all yards containing swimming pools shall be completely enclosed by a fence, not less than 4 feet in height. So, all yards containing swimming pools, whether it's the swimming pool or the yard, it has to be at least 4 feet.
Okay.
So, but in addition to all of this, there's so much more when doing a pool, was Gopher 811 called for utilities underneath.
Yes.
Where Jason and Kyle went out there and looked at it. You know, I know that there's the one, I don't know how far that power line is.
There's no issues with, and Jason has been out there
Yeah, and
twice.
I haven't, I mean, I drive by your house all the time, I just
Yeah.
don't pay attention.
No, I did. I called the 5 or 811, whatever.
And I'm not saying you didn't, I'm just
Is that-
throwing it out there, but, you know, making sure
Yep, I did all that.
T's are crossed, I's are
I have to
dotted.
look and look at this
But
sometime, yes.
the way I'm looking at it, and like these guys,
Yeah.
if you had a 4 foot pool, 4
4
foot
foot deck around
fence,
it, yeah.
deck, railing, whatever around your deck, to me, I think that's enough. As
Okay.
long as you, I mean,
That's, she
And
started
that's-
saying
that's
on
all
the
I'm
deck,
asking.
you close the deck, that makes absolute sense to me.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
Bob, do you have anything to add on that? He disappeared.
I don't really, and I think that's good, good conversation about it, but no, legally, I have no further input.
but you think that would be okay with the 4 foot deck railing in addition to the 52 inch side of your pool, 54 inches, almost 10 feet, 9 feet tall that, I mean, I think that's, still falls into the guidelines, wouldn't you think?
Yeah, I mean,
Okay.
the interest that cities have in having fences around pools or coverings over pools that are impermeable is keeping people in your community safe, right? And that's fundamentally what we're talking about here, and so, that's a reasonable, council member, that's a reasonable way to address, safety of kids in a big pool. I mean, this is a big pool we're talking about in this, residence yard, and so that's a reasonable approach.
27 and a half,
27 feet in diameter, wow, there's a, I don't even know where you live, so.
So with that fence,
Yeah, and my goal is to keep everybody safe.
Yeah.
To really get out of it by any means, I just.
you know, and with the fence, then there has to be a building permit, and then the fencing material has to come before the council. That all has to be approved.
The fence or the deck?
The deck.
The deck,
Okay.
well, the deck with the fence.
Well, we have
That-
4-foot rails around it,
If you-
yeah.
Deck with a rail.
Yeah.
Yep, that has to be,
Yes.
that would be
Not a fence,
considered,
but
that
a
would
deck
be-
with a rail.
Well, and it's,
Okay.
yes,
Well-
we're
Basically,
calling
it's
it a
a
fence
fence.
because that's what it's
Yes.
in here, because that's
Okay.
what we're looking at. But overall, your building permit has to come
Correct.
to Jill saying, this is my deck, this is my railing going around it.
but like railing with slats, not just a top rail.
Oh, God.
Yeah, because I mean, that would be a
I
height,
have a four rail.
so, yeah. So, but those things, you'd have to work with Jill with that then, and so to get that approved.
And I didn't do it yet because I wanted to see.
Yeah.
So I'll get that.
Sure.
We answer all your questions.
So,
So, wow.
can I ask what you're doing in the meantime, since the pool is filled, and there's no fence?
It's over 4 feet right now, so, and the deck that's on there, so I grab a step ladder when we need to go in.
Okay.
And that's how, it's either that or get my safety ladder.
Yeah, so there's no access to it until you put the
absolutely
ladder out,
not,
yeah,
no.
that's over 4
No.
feet, so. yeah.
Well, there's always access to it.
Well,
I mean, I'm just saying, if somebody wanted to come in and bring a box or get somebody up there and get in the pool, there's always access
Yeah.
as long as there's not a latch gate and a fence around it, so just, so continue to work with Jill with that and we'll move forward,
all right.
Okay.
Yep.
Good.
all right?
Sounds good.
Great, thanks for coming.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Look forward to
Appreciate it.
swimming in the pool.
Oh, a party.
Yay.
Thanks very much.
You're welcome. You're good.
Thank you.
Okay, Mitch, you're up.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I am Mitch Lindholm, representing St. Luke's Lutheran Church tonight. I have two things that we're gonna kind of cover. The first is, I put on the agenda 50-50 raffle, but it's actually a 60-40 raffle. 50-50 is kind of household term. So we're gonna apply for doing another raffle. Last year we did an ATV raffle. It was very successful. This year we're not going to do a single prize. It's going to be all cash prizes. We have it broke down. So we just need an application signed by somebody from the council so I can send it into the state, same as the ATV raffle.
Yep.
So I'll give you guys the breakdown if you're interested in it, and then
And make a motion. Correct.
it would just be here. Yeah.
Okay. So on the raffle, I need a motion to approve the raffle for St. Luke's Church.
I move we approve the raffle for St. Luke's.
I'll second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Okay,
Thank you.
On to two.
And, the second one is our old, our existing building. We will be moving from the old one to the new sooner than later, hopefully. And so we're just coming up with some ideas of what we're going to do with the old property. We would like it to serve purpose to the community still. So we're open for ideas. We're brainstorming. We don't really have a direct path. So if the council has any input, our church council is more than willing to listen.
discussion, we talked about the church, and we talked about whether or not the city had any interest in buying the church. And so at that time, correct me if I'm wrong, it sounded like the general consensus was that we were not interested in purchasing the church at that time. So I guess that is something that we need to iterate again today, or what's everybody's feelings on that?
Well, I guess my thing is what was St. Luke's wanting to do with it? Were they wanting to donate it? Were they wanting to sell it? Were they wanting to open it up for?
So we're, Lana Heeman is a member at St. Luke's, so she's gonna kind of be heading that department. I guess really what St. Luke's would like is not to have an expense with that building. So if we were to tear it down, there would be expense with that to make a vacant lot or whatever it might be. We don't really want an expense. I guess that's really our end goal. So, yeah.
I think unfortunately, there's always gonna be an expense with taking down a
No
building
matter
such
what.
as that.
Right.
So that's kind of the $1 million question.
Yep.
So, and I did have a conversation, Lana had reached out to me and asked what was the city's, thought process on that. And Patrice and I had met earlier with Pastor and talked about some different things. And then in discussion with the city engineer, and looking at that and whether or not the city was interested in that. So I think there's a lot of logistics with that, because who owns the building, who owns the land? It has to then go back to, if it's torn down, then it goes back to residential. Will it be sold as a lot? So I think there's a lot of unanswered questions with that.
Yep. And two, we just want to keep it on your radar too, because hopefully, we would hope that somebody from the community would use it for something, and maybe there would be a zone change or something,
Great.
So it's just on your radar that there'll be some things happening with that old building.
Right.
So, yeah.
Well, like I said, when I visited with Lana too, and with our city engineer, we openly talked about the possibility that there could very well be asbestos in the building.
Sure.
Due to the age of the building and with the lead pipe. So
Yeah.
with those, that comes a lot of expense. So
Yeah.
that's why I think we sit back and we're a little bit more cautious. And then what else are you taking out of the building?
Stained glass windows, bell, so actually we're gonna move a lot of the kitchen over to the new until we, kind of get some more funding for the kitchen. So yeah, there's a few things that we'll be taking. Yeah.
So
So the exterior windows will be removed?
Yes, the bigger stained glass.
Replace them with anything?
We would have to kind of negotiate with a future buyer. I thought about buying it, turning it into a pool, but there's too many rules to that. That's your goal.
Oh, that's what I think that's yeah. So when are you planning, what are you shooting for to be out?
Yeah, so this year has been really good for building, dry. They're on schedule. We're hoping for Christmas service in the new building.
Oh, boy.
Okay, I didn't realize that soon. Oh,
Nice.
I've been out setting the trusses and stuff for it, so it's coming.
Yeah.
Yeah, you guys are doing excellent. Like I said, the weather's been great.
Oh, shoot.
So, and my job is I kind of sit here in this position, always trying to throw things out. My big concern would be is you're gonna take all the windows out and it's gonna be close to winter time. So,
correct.
Then you're opening up the building, what's it gonna look like as far as the city, or if it doesn't go to anybody, will it be knocked down before that?
Correct. So obviously, we're not gonna have an eyesore for the city.
Right. Right.
We are just in the early stages of planning, pre-planning of what we can do. We're listening to ideas. Obviously, we want something positive for the community.
Right.
So, yeah, no, it's not gonna, it won't be an eyesore.
Yeah. And I think ultimately that is the goal for the city. We all would like to see something positive, and if the building can be used for something very useful, I just don't see that it's in the cards for the city right now.
No.
Sure.
The only thing that's positive about it too, is roof was just replaced not that long ago, right?
Correct.
Yeah,
It was a decent roof, but yeah.
so.
Yeah, that's something to think about, I guess.
But Lana did want an answer from the city,
Yep.
so
Just
then
we can
she
move on.
could,
There's
so
no
they
hard
can move forward and
feelings.
say, the city, no, they're still not interested, so
Right.
is she actively going to be looking for somebody else to buy the property?
Yep.
I thought we were all in a consensus that we were not interested.
Yeah.
We kind of talked about the council.
So,
That's
Okay.
so I think that's fair to,
Yeah.
get back to. Would you like to call Lana? I didn't know you were
Yeah,
gonna
we'll
be
do
here tonight,
Yeah.
so you can talk with her, otherwise I told her I'd call her tomorrow, but
Yep.
if you could get back to her and mention, just
Yeah.
let her know the city's position on that, but yeah, it'd be great if it could be utilized.
So right now it's zoned,
Is it residential yet? Is it zoned residential?
No, I don't,
It's that,
oh,
Yeah.
right there.
yeah. But Patrice, do you remember, I thought Pastor said like the church,
So it's an R2, so medium density residential.
yeah, so,
Oh,
but it would have to go just
Well,
residential.
just an idea here, that if nobody were to buy it and they got, I don't know if it's got the asbestos and you can just, I hate seeing it torn down. But if they had people volunteer to help remove it, and then I don't know if we got Dylan involved
Are you
to
talking about the asbestos?
the church.
Oh,
Like, I don't know if you could just
Yeah.
bulldoze, I don't know how all that works. But if it were to be removed and then we get the EDA involved to, a winter ice rink or, something along that lines to where it's still, engaging the community, because I think 100 years ago we had one up by the other church, so I think. But just an idea that if nobody wants it to do anything, I know Pastor likes ice skating, so just a thought. I don't know if that's another idea to bring something to our community. Just an idea.
That's all I got.
okay,
thank you for
Okay.
coming.
Thank you. IRAC will take
Thank
it,
you.
please.
No.
do I need to sign that?
I'm able to sign off on those.
Perfect, good, okay. And next on the agenda is. Here we go. Trying to keep pulling it up. The bills.
Bill.
I was going through them and I had, I know on 2 of 16 right away, we had a fuel bill for $843 to Shell.
So that is at Royals,
Yep.
and that's strictly for the police department and the squad cars.
Okay, so then the other ones were, this is just the squad cars, okay.
And then
Okay, 'cause
public works is listed in there, so.
Yeah, there was 3 of them, that's why I was wondering. Then one said oil change, fuel, and diesel. Yeah, right here on 9 of 16, and it said Royal Auto Service, oil change, fuel, diesel for another $640.
Yes, so when it goes right to Royals,
Yep.
then that is the squad oil changes
Yep.
and public works equipment
Okay,
that they fill up with fuel. So the Shell is a
so
Shell
this
credit
fuel
card.
here would be for like public works then?
Yes, for Royals.
Yeah.
Yep.
Because then there was one more later that was on page 14 of 16, and it said Shell, fuel for June, police, $479 more.
Yep, and so it's at the cutoff of
Oh.
when the invoices
Okay,
come.
I just seen June and I thought there's 3 of them, I didn't know, I was a
Yeah.
little confused, okay. Oh,
Yeah, so that's just when I got to
Okay, sure.
apply it,
Yep, perfect.
because those are automatic
Okay.
setup.
I just didn't
And
know.
keep in mind, we don't approve bills on our first meeting.
Exactly, that's why, it's a whole month's worth, that's why I was
Yeah.
confused, you know. I just seen there was 3 of them in there and I thought that maybe, I don't know, you know, as long as it's right. Otherwise, I kinda went through everything and I didn't have a problem with anything else. What did you have?
Well, I just had questions on, you know, when you, well, just, we could get down to, like, which page? I gotta find it here first. Okay, so like, one of the first was 4 of 16, halfway down, when we're talking about payroll. So can you explain to me how, where, like the gas commission payroll, do we pay, do we do all the payroll for the gas commission and then they reimburse?
Yep.
So then so that's why you see it.
Yep, so that second, if you're on page 4 of 16, the second to the last one,
Yep.
that would be one of, without being able to go look at the full paper right now, that would be one of the guys. For the $257, one of the guys that was on call.
Oh, for the weekend.
For the week.
Yeah, okay.
Because they get $300
Yep.
for the week of being on call, and so they're every 3 weeks they're on. And so that's their wage for that one in particular. So if you go halfway through that column, under the account name, it says gas commission payroll expense. So that's coded there with a 605. 605 will always be the gas fund.
Oh, okay. So do they get like 2 separate checks
Yes.
on that?
Yep.
So they get their payroll check.
Yep.
And then they get, if they're on call for gas commission.
Yes, and so if they're on gas, they're also on the sewer.
Yep.
Yep, so
Okay.
if they're on, they'll get actually 3 checks.
Okay.
They'll get the
Yep,
regular check,
absolutely.
gas check, and the
And
sewer
then the
check.
sewer check,
Okay.
Yeah.
On page 8 of 16, so the workman's comp coverage premium, is that biannually, yearly, monthly?
That is annually.
Oh,
Okay, so that,
Yep.
I was like.
That was on the League of Minnesota Cities, $8,000 one?
Yep,
Yeah.
and so they
I
come
looked at
down
that too.
and
That's
review
annual.
that with us, and that's based off of our wages, and any claims that we've had or anything like that.
Okay.
And it did not change. I shouldn't say it didn't change. It changed slightly. It was like 7,800 last year.
Okay. I was just kind of wondering on that one. So on page 9 of 16, so we pay Northland Securities, that's at $16,000.
Yeah, so that was the interest payment
Okay.
for the bonds.
Oh, the bond
And
payment.
so in August 1st, that's due, and that's the interest for the year.
We do that once.
Yes, just in August. And then in February is when the principal is due.
Okay.
Sure.
And that's for all the bonds, right?
Yes.
Yep.
Mhm.
Okay. Here we are, that's first.
So if you went to the line above that is First Farmers and Merchants, that was also the bond.
Oh.
And actually I have to change that, because it shouldn't say principal, it should say interest. So I will change that.
So we have one at
I have it quoted.
First Farmers too?
Yes, there's 3 of them.
Okay.
There's 3 bonds,
On that list that you gave us
Yes.
before.
and 1 goes to Northland, 2 go to, the page.
Okay, got it.
So again, those are both interest, so I'll make that change. It shouldn't have said principal, it should say interest.
The only other one that was confusing me now that we're on pools tonight was the swimming pool. They said our beginning balance was 0, then went to the receipts. This is on 1 of 1, the very first page. And then in parentheses, it had, well, actually, its disbursements were 89,000, and then in ending balance in parentheses was 52,000. I'm a little confused. On 1 of 1, the very first page in the receipts, and disbursements and balances. I couldn't quite understand that because I see in here the JCs, or not the JCs, but the Lions donated for 10,000. That was on here again, yeah. But on that very
Okay,
first
so
page.
I'm at the page now, can you
Yep.
repeat that?
Well, I don't understand it at all. I went through it earlier, and because it starts out, our beginning balance was 0,
Okay.
and then our receipts, we had 37,384, and then our disbursements was 89,450, and then,
Yes,
so that's the difference, the 52,000 is the difference?
Yes,
We're
because,
negative.
That's a negative then,
because
okay.
we've made the
Okay.
bond payment, so
Yep.
actually before the pool even opened in June, we've already made the February bond payment.
Oh,
And so
okay.
that bond payment is also with the water tower. It's the pool, water
Okay, so it's
tower,
all-
and two streets, 2017,
Okay, yeah.
2014
Perfect,
streets.
yep.
So that was consolidated, so, and that was, I don't know the bond, oh, I do actually have the bond stuff right here.
Good, so yeah, that's where the difference was. I knew that was the difference between the two of them. I couldn't figure out how that, okay, that's perfect. That
And
makes sense.
as you mentioned, the Lions building, the Lions Club did, donate $10,000.
Yeah.
So that was nice of them to be
Yeah,
able to do that.
that helps.
So is this a yearly thing that they donate or
Yes,
not?
they
It
have
is.
graciously done that
Okay.
every year.
Historically, we don't know
Yeah.
what they're gonna do in
Yeah.
the future, but. Right.
And
Of
the
course
other
they
thing
will.
too, the gas commission, they donate money
Oh,
to
good.
offset the cost of heating.
Oh, good. That
So-
helps, yeah.
Was that,
Nice. Is that on there? I
they
didn't see
just
that.
credit our account.
Oh,
It was over $2,000.
Yeah.
That's what they credit,
Yep.
onto the
Nice.
account
Jeez,
for
that's really
the
good.
For the gas.
Wow.
So they didn't
Yeah.
specify.
Yeah, so we voted on that the last time.
And so, just as a reminder, this is as of July 20th, so I have not reconciled the bank statements for July yet, since we're still in the months, but so far we've brought in $37,000 for the pool, so we're gonna have a few $1,000s more because of the pool fees that go up there, but that includes the lessons that have been, and the admissions and stuff like that so far. And then once we get to that, so right now we're negative 52,000.
Yep.
And that is pretty average what we're at. We're halfway through the season and it'll be roughly the $78,000 to $80,000 negative, which has been pretty consistent. But again, just as a reminder, previous council has used LGA money to cover that, to get it back at,
Sure.
as an amenity for the city.
Good.
So,
Yep.
just as a reminder, that's.
Well, we knew that it hurt the city, well, not hurt the city, but it cost the city money every year. We knew that.
Is there a deadline on the COVID-19?
Just
That is
repeat
20
same thing.
That is 2026.
26.
And
Yeah,
it can only be used for certain things, right?
yes, and so we should really get that on a work meeting.
Yeah, I'd like to know what we can and cannot.
Right, well, because I've had other people ask me what that money's being used for, and I told them I could not answer that, I didn't know.
The police seizure, it said that 277353,
Yeah.
is that Dodge?
Josh would be able to answer which vehicle it was. It was a vehicle that there was a situation that, and then the vehicle got left here. And so after a month period of time, then it goes to the city. Then Josh has the opportunity to go and sell it, and that's what it's sold for.
Yeah, but it's sold it on grades.
Yeah.
Oh, they did, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I was wondering if that was the truck that was down. in
I
that-
think so.
I'm gonna say
I
yes,
think so.
because it was always stored there.
Huh,
All right.
Tiff, this gives me, I get, my eyes twirl with Tiff. But anyway, okay, so, the 1.3 is Ag Partners, 1.5 is the Ryan. What is the 1.4? It's a minus number.
Was that the one we had?
And that's on the first page, page 1 of 1. The receipts, disbursements and balances.
Was that the one we were supposed to, turn in or cash in?
Yes, that is correct. And so you are correct by stating that, Patrice, one of them is Ag Partners. I have not looked up what the specific name for the property that the other one belongs to. I can find the name of that, but that is, so why it goes negative is because we still have to, because there's still funds there, we still have to pay to the paperwork process of them. And so that is why it is important to be able to, we're in the process of closing these out.
Okay,
So I am working with Bob and his staff to be able to get the resolution and all of that.
Okay.
So that should be coming up in possibly the next work meeting or shortly after,
Okay.
to be able to get that to turn.
Okay. Good. And then the development fund, non-EDA, I'm sure you've told me before.
Yes, and I will get the definition of it again. I did have to look it up and I can't quite remember off the
Okay.
top of it
Okay.
what that is, but I will follow up with that.
Because it's a minus number.
What are they putting in the storage unit over at the Lions building? Is that the Lions or is that us?
That is all of the Lions, so I do have a spreadsheet of what are costs to the Lions building. So they send me, so they're doing some construction over there. And so they needed that storage unit. So when A1, it's A1.
A1 Mobile.
Yes, so that is, the invoice is like $120 a month. They invoice me that, and then it goes to a spreadsheet that I track. Because then some of these deposits here that the Lions Club sends, they have on their memo that it's to that building.
Okay.
Yeah, so they're using that building, but they're also maintaining that building type of thing. So once they send that $10,000 to go to the pool, of course, it's at the pool fund operation.
Okay.
And then they get their spreadsheets with monthly from any charges that is on there.
Perfect. I approve.
Okay, could I get a motion to approve to pay the bills? Motion to pay the bills.
I'll
To
move.
approve the bills.
Second?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Hey. All right. Oh, shoot. Can I, is Bob gone? He must be gone. Okay, I need to just talk about something else briefly, I kind of forgot. It was brought to our attention that there were some discrepancies on what was insured on the baseball field. Okay, and that's always been kind of there was no contract ever written, okay,
What baseball field?
up at the school.
Heritage Park.
Heritage Park. So the city owns the property that the baseball field sits on. But baseball field was allowed to be built there because the city said, sure. Okay? So, but there was always kind of this gentleman's agreement about what was gonna happen and who was gonna do what, but it was never written down. So I've been working with Evan, and Jason and I have met with Evan. We're trying to come up with possibly a couple people from the council and Jason, and they're gonna have a couple school board members work with them to try to come up with a plan on how we can kind of work cooperatively together without everybody spending money, and then decide who's gonna be responsible for the fence, the maintaining the property, the dugouts, okay, those kinds of things, the scoreboard. So what happened was, in that process, and then with the impending storms and kind of checking in to see, because there was roof damage, and Jason wanted to patch it, and I said, you should check with the insurance company. We found out, correct, Joe, that it's not insured anywhere. So we have, the bathrooms are insured for $75,000, because they're city property. Okay, the property in the open, like the open area, okay, is insured for $90,000. Well, that also kind of includes Heritage Park playground equipment. So what we discovered 2 days ago is all the fencing is not covered by anybody, neither
Who put
the
that
school.
fence in?
The school, okay? But see, they didn't, because it sits on city property. So the fence, and that would be about $80,000 to replace it if we had a bad storm or something happen. The scoreboard, which I checked with Evan, was about $20,000. Okay, so, and then the dugouts. So what we had to quickly do is come up with, it needs to be insured, so nobody's losing money on this. So Jill worked on this. I got numbers from Evan, and so I worked with Jerry Tipke at this time. And right now, it costs us nothing to add to the policy. Okay, they'll reevaluate it November 15th. So we just had to come up with measurements, dollars, like to replace it. And so that was, did that get sent to Jerry? Did we get all the finance? So Jerry has it, so he was gonna make the change. Evan was okay. He said, we'll do whatever. But see, since it sits on city property, that's where it gets a little bit fuzzy, right, Joan?
Correct.
Yeah, so.
We lost Bob, sorry,
That's okay. So that's kind of where that came, and that came about this week, and we felt, well, with all the storms coming and everything, we thought, and if the scoreboard was hit by lightning, all of a sudden then, who pays for it? It's $20,000. So it is insured, it's covered. We're trying to get this group together and then sit down and figure out, okay, is it the school that's gonna be responsible to carry the insurance on the fence, the scoreboard, the dugouts, the bathroom is the city property, but how that all works, so we're trying to really work kind of
So
cooperatively.
the softball fields are owned by the city as well, right?
No, those are on school
That's the
property.
school, okay.
It's an odd thing, because the baseball field, Heritage Park, the bathroom is the and then the tennis courts are owned by the
That's right,
city.
yep.
But then the football field on the other side is all school, so it's got this weird little section where we have to kind of insure that.
Yeah, and the only other way you could do that is if the school rented it from the city, then they
Yeah.
could insure it.
But Evan even said, he said, if the city has to insure it, that's fine. He said, we would be willing to share the cost in that.
As
With
long as
that,
everything's
because it's like, they might not insure it because it sits on city property. So we have to do some checking with that. So that's where that's kind of coming from. So, give that some thought for our next work meeting. If there's somebody who wants to, Evan kind of thought maybe we should have a Parks and Recreation committee to really look at all these things, since there's so much sharing of property there. So that's kind of how that all came.
Really
So
been thinking about
we
it
have
too,
insurance
this morning.
on that.
Yeah.
It was,
Good.
all of a sudden, it was like Jerry was checking, and I was like, nope, no insurance there, so.
If we'd have known that, 2 o'clock this morning when that storm come through, it would have made you really wonder. They got pretty violent for a little bit.
Well, it
That was
did.
up for all of
It was really, yeah.
Oh.
So, okay. Oh, gosh. One other thing, we really gotta get on that cannabis thing, because this is a print from, Pine Island.
There's a lot of
And
concern
about,
everywhere.
so they just adopted on July 18th, the Pine Island City Council approved the ordinance number 161 entitled an interim ordinance authorizing a study and imposing a moratorium on the operation of cannabis businesses. And that would hold true until January 1st, 2025. And that's, Bob had sent us, that working document, so work meeting. We gotta get that done so we can get this adopted, because that's what most cities are doing. They're just doing a moratorium until 2025, until everybody gets their ducks in a row, as in the state.
And, well, state doesn't have their
I
ducks
was
in a
trying
row.
to be nice.
Well, just, hey, just stop it. I mean, tell it like
We're gonna
it
get
is.
it all figured out.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Oh, there's a lot of concern everywhere.
We did adjourn the meeting, didn't we?
No.
No.
Oh, man, okay, so, can I get a motion to adjourn the meeting?
So move.
Can I get a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
Good night.
Meeting adjourned. Now, Mitch, be sure to check after all this, you'll wanna watch. I know.